For the last few days, I've been trying to think of the easiest way to explain the show we're going to look at today, and the best I've got is just combine Master Chef with Deadliest Warrior, and air on the History Channel, since it's obvious at this point they have seemingly run out of history and will air anything but history. The show in question is Forged in Fire, where they take 4 expert bladesmiths and have them compete in a 3-round elimination contest to forge bladed weapons, with the winner earning a whopping $10,000 and also being crowned the Forged in Fire champion, for whatever that's worth. Now you may be thinking, Chris, why are you doing this show? And well, I'll tell you, it's because it's funny. You see, one of my favorite types of shows to make fun of are the ones where there is a very not serious thing, and then they make it into something that feels like the most serious thing on the planet. And competition reality shows almost always go in that direction. Forged in Fire is no exception. So enough yapping, let's watch some middle-aged men make some knives.
I'm James Hughes. I got into making knives in 2000. It's the pride of being able to make something with your hands and make a useful piece of art.
I'm Jonathan Porter, and I am a farrier, the fancy word for a horseshoer, as well as a full-time bladesmith.
Okay, let's maybe start with the blacksmith thing next time. I don't need to hear about your other ventures.
My name is Ryu Lim. I was born and raised in the Philippines. I'm an iron worker, and I make blades for a living.
My name is Phil Evans. I've been making knives for almost 20 years. I made my first knife in 1995. I ground it out of a file and put a deer antler handle on it.
As I look at this lineup, it's pretty obvious that the first 3 guys are blacksmiths. No surprise there. Then you've got Phil, who looks like he's just happy to be there. So now that we've met our contestants, it's time to find out what the challenge is. Can you get it? They're going to be making a blade. They're going to be forging a blade in fire.
Your challenge is to forge that spring into a weapon of your own design.
Okay, seems simple enough. Make a good old-fashioned knife. Hopefully no surprise curveballs thrown into the mix.
Just to spice things up a little bit, that blade that you create must also have a fuller that runs over half the length of the blade. You will have 3 hours to forge your blades.
I love Phil's face after they mention the 3-hour detail, like, 3 hours? Jesus Christ, I got work tomorrow. Now this next detail is something that I just don't understand at all.
After your time is up, one of you will have to surrender your weapon and go home.
Like, you're gonna spend all of this time and energy forging this thing, and you don't even get to take it home as a souvenir or anything like that?
My specialty is hunting knives and fighting knives. I want to mix those 2 together into one blade, and I want it to work.
Alright, there is no excuse for them to be using this as Ryu's picture. Like, just look at Phil's picture. They got a nice, normal one of him smiling, and then you cut to Ryu's, and he's like, "What? Huh? Wait, what'd you say?"
I forged my first sword when I was 10 years old. I felt the hot iron move in my hand, being formed by the hammer to my will, and I felt very powerful. I love that sword. I slept next to it every night.
My specialty in knife making is hunting knife or skinning knife, so I wanted to stick with what I knew.
I love how different these guys' vibes are, just hearing them talk about their different levels of experience and history with forging, especially comparing Ryu and Phil. I forged my first blade when I was a child. I still remember the heat from the hot forge on my face. I slept with that knife close to my chest every night. And still do. Hi, my name's Phil. I'm a full-time truck driver, and in my spare time, I like to make knives and swords.
My dad was blind. Almost every knife that I made, I showed him. He couldn't see it, but he would feel it, and he could feel imperfections that I couldn't see, which made me a better knife maker.
My father is blind, so every time I'd make a blade, I'd hand it to him for him to feel, and, well, his hand is just covered in bandages. I don't know what we were thinking. So now that we've got all of the pleasantries out of the way, it's time to forge. In fire. Forged in fire time, baby. And once again, they have 3 hours to do this, which, at first I figured, that's plenty of time. I would imagine, I don't know, I have never forged a fucking blade. But you will quickly see how that 3-hour time limit just doesn't really matter in the end, and everything kind of falls apart. But something that doesn't take 3 hours to complete is a delicious ready-made meal from the sponsor of today's video, Factor. Guys, Factor is back to help you save time, money, and eat healthier with chef-crafted meals delivered right to your doorstep. And like I said, these take way less than 3 hours to complete. Actually, only 2 minutes, and you've got food on the table. That's 90 times faster than forging a blade. I did the math. Another great thing about Factor is the flexibility, not only with the frequency and volume of what you can order, but in the specific types of meals you get. You can choose from plans like Keto, Calorie Smart, Vegan and Vegetarian, Protein Plus, and more than 27 meal options each week. And in terms of flexibility, their plans range from 4 to 18 meals per week, and you can add more or reduce the number depending on how you're feeling, or even skip a week entirely. Wow, that sounds super convenient. I know. My favorite part about Factor, in my opinion, is the convenience. Everything is shipped right to your doorstep, so you don't have to worry about hectic trips to the grocery store, which can especially be rough this time of year. So if you want to give Factor a try, use my link or go to go.factor75.com and use code POGCHRISOCT50 for 50% off your first box. Click the link in my description or scan the QR code on screen with your phone. I hope you guys check them out. Let me know if you do. Thank you to Factor once again for helping out the channel, and now back to Forged in Fire.
All these other guys got their springs in the forge. I'm falling way behind.
Now, while most of the guys are taking full advantage of the tools available to them at this shop, not Ryu.
I could make weapons out of anything, like literally anything. By myself, with no assistance, with no help from machines. I want to do everything by hand, and I want to show people how I make my blades.
Which, I'll admit, is admirable, but not only will that bite him in the ass multiple times this episode, he's also just not consistent with it. He's very selective with the technology he chooses to work with and not work with at any given moment.
He's beating on cold steel there. He's got to get that a lot hotter.
You know, it's easy to forget while watching shows like this because of the way everything is condensed and edited down, but the judges were seemingly watching these guys forge hot steel for 3 hours straight. That must have been boring as shit.
I have this ability to look at a piece of steel and just see the atoms. It's just material in front of me, and it's free. It can be moved wherever you want.
Is this the thanks that I get for putting you bitches on?
So some time has passed, and we're starting to see the guys turn their hot steel into something that's starting to resemble a knife. Then we check in with Ryu, and well, he's not doing the greatest.
I felt like I was gonna pass out. And it's about 100 degrees in here. I had to leave. I didn't want it to happen in front of everybody.
Oh, what is he thinking?
What did he just do?
This is it. I'm done. This is a disaster. I'm laying down. On the background, I could hear all these hammers pounding.
Where are they filming? Is this the back of a Chinese buffet? What is this waiting room? So Ryu has run into his first of many obstacles while practicing traditional forging methods, and I can only describe this as him getting tuckered out. But not for long. After his quick rest, he's back and better than ever and decides, you know what? I'm gonna use electricity, because this is fucking bullshit. Not for long though, because surprisingly enough, using heavy machinery without experience, using heavy machinery often doesn't end well.
I never used these power tools before, like the power hammer and the hydraulic press, but I was running out of time, and I needed to catch up.
That's why I don't like machines, man.
Okay, Ryu, maybe you just don't know what the hell you're doing here because you're just walking up to every machine trying to figure out what it does.
One little slip of that press, you could squeeze down too thin and almost blow out the center.
Oh, wow.
You got to be very careful.
We really got a bunch of backseat forgers here, don't we? Now remember earlier when I said that the 3-hour time limit just doesn't really matter in the end and everything kind of falls apart? That 3-hour time limit just doesn't really matter in the end and everything kind of falls apart. Yeah, that. Wasn't that long ago. Anyways, you're about to see what I meant by that.
Oh my God.
What happened?
Just broke my blade. I can do a lot in 45 minutes. I know I'm gonna have a lot of work to do, but as long as I can turn something in that's better than the other guy's stuff, I'll have a better chance to get to the second round.
Almost 2.5 hours in, and he breaks his blade. And then he's like, you know what? I still think I can make something better than these guys in 45 minutes. Probably not. It took you 2.5 hours to make something that was a piece of shit. So good luck, buddy.
You got less than 7 minutes. I want a fully heat-treated, functional blade.
Okay, bud, this is History Channel. We can maybe take it down a notch.
Come on, Phil. Put in oil. You're the closest one. Ryu, get in the oil.
These
Come
guys
on.
have forgotten they have to heat treat. They're just making profiles.
I want to see a finished blade. If it's long enough, it's got a fuller, and it's hard, I'll be happy.
You know, what if none of them completed this challenge? Like, they realized 3 hours is just not enough time at all. You can tell that's already kind of the case, because at this point the judges are just like, you know what? as long as it sort of almost looks like a knife, in my peripheral vision, I'll fucking take it.
I'll take anything at this point.
Everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy.
I mean, dude, you kind of got that fucking look in your eye right now, come on. So now after all of the forgers have had their chance to make what looks like a 6-year-old's drawing of another 6-year-old's drawing of a knife, it's time for the judges to take their look.
You had a little bit of trouble during the heat treat. You got a warp in this blade.
I like the shape of your knife. I like the drop to the handle. In a chopper, that really adds a lot to it. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, maybe this is a reach, as most of my observations often are, but does this judge not just look like Phil with some pomade in his beard? They're very similar looking men.
The thing that worried me for a second there was when you had to leave the forge. I thought you quit on us, but I was glad to see you come back. And despite everything that happened, you were still able to forge this weapon.
Thank you.
You know, Ryu, I was a little bit worried earlier when you had to take a step away and cry, take a nap, take a shit, I don't know, whatever the hell you did. I was a little bit worried. But you came back and you proved yourself, and I'm proud of you.
Yeah, there's some issues with this.
Now, I know earlier I was giving Ryu shit for his picture, but maybe Jonathan's isn't that good either. It looks like the ID picture of that kid at middle school that was always in school suspension.
Still needs some work. It's got a little wiggle in it, but excellent job.
Thank you.
James, please present your weapon to the judges.
Okay, I know this goes without saying. I'm not a bladesmith, but God, that looks like shit. Literally kind of does look like a piece of shit made out of steel.
We've all broken blades, but I gotta tell you, fantastic effort.
Okay, maybe I was wrong for just giving Ryu shit at the beginning for his photo, and I think Phil is the only one with a good picture, because James also doesn't look the greatest. He looks like middle school me at the dinner table getting in a fight with my dad because I don't understand the math homework.
I was actually looking forward to seeing that shape you're working on, too. A big sweep to it. But unfortunately, the blade you're handing us isn't quenched, and therefore can't be a blade.
Yes, sir.
You know, James, I was excited to see the blade you were working on before. It looked like it had a really nice shape to it. But it didn't work out, and now you're handing us this presumably steel turd. What the fuck is this?
James, I'd like to say one more thing. There's metal, and then there's metal.
Yes.
You know what? Color me surprised, because at the beginning of this show, I was going off of just looks alone. I was for sure that James was going to win because, I mean, come on, that dude looks like he was picked right out of the Middle Ages in a blacksmith shop. That man was born to forge.
All I can say is I made errors to try to give myself more time, and it backfired on me.
Of course, not only has James been publicly humiliated on cable television and now the Chris James YouTube channel, he also has to surrender his... well, that thing he made. Not that I would want to keep that if I were him, but it still feels harsh, just being like, yeah, so if you could just leave that thing behind for us, we're gonna go ahead and hold on to it. Those train springs were really fucking expensive. So now that James has been eliminated, it's time for the second of 3 challenges, where the guys will have to finish their knives by sharpening and adding a handle. In 3 hours. 3 more hours of this. I just know Phil is getting tired of this shit. 3 more hours? Oh my god, damn it, my dinner's gonna be so cold when I get home.
I have so much catch up to do that I am just terrified that my time management is going to become the biggest issue. Oh, God.
Out of all of the footage they compiled for this episode, they had to leave in the 3 seconds of him dropping that thing.
He does not look happy with his second blade, and I hope that doesn't sit like a cloud hanging over him during this second challenge.
Oh, you mean like kind of like what you're doing now? Over my fucking shoulder? I can hear you. You're 10 feet away from me.
It's like a man-powered belt grinder.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what it is.
We've got all the modern versions of the tools that he's making.
And he wants the primitive version.
And he wants the primitive versions. How does that affect his time overall?
It's gonna kill him.
Of course, we've got a classic Ryu making his life harder for the sake of being traditional. Even though he's proven when it comes down to it, he really doesn't give a shit.
Because I'm going to use the copper, I try and find a really neutral, highly figured burl wood for the bulk of the handle.
Oh, there we go.
No, I fucking shit.
I like to do it all by hand, but
But in a 3-hour challenge.
Oh my God.
Now, if there's one thing I know about Ryu, it's that he's going to be filthy. He always finds a way to get absolutely covered in whatever substance, whether that be sweat, for dust.
Looks like somebody threw a hand grenade into a flower factory over there.
He looks like Kevin McAllister just dumped a bag of cement on him.
It's just another day at the office.
They made him say that shit. There's no way they didn't make him say that shit.
3, 2, 1. Your time is up.
I look at the other guy's blade, and they look pretty ordinary, and mine doesn't. So I think that gives me a little bit of an edge.
Okay, so now that the guys have finished their weapons, it's time for the judges to put them to the test.
We can do 1 chop per coconut, 3 coconuts per blade. Phil, you're up first. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
I'm feeling a little nervous. I think I'm sweating more now than I did during the forging part of the competition.
Still nowhere close to how much Ryu was sweating in round 1. I think you're probably good.
Jay cut the first coconut, and it just kind of slid off the table and didn't cut right through it.
Well, Phil, I gotta say it felt really good in hand. I wish it had a little more weight to it, but unfortunately it broke.
Yeah, I know. I was there. You know, after watching this guy take shots at these coconuts, can we all agree he really fucking sucks at cutting coconuts? Out of the many he's tried, he's only cut 2. The rest just flew off the table. You know what? I'm getting too much into this show.
I'm not nervous right now. I'm actually pretty excited that they're gonna put my blade to the test. I wanna see what happens.
So Ryu's blade did pretty well, and now it's time to test out Jonathan's, and all things considered, he's seeming pretty confident.
I'm certain that my knife is about to shatter into a million pieces.
Alright, you know what? Get someone else on coconut cutting duty. Jesus Christ, bring James back. Give him something to do. But after that embarrassing coconut test, it's time to test out the sharpness of the blades, with Phil still standing right there for some reason, even though he failed miserably. They're going to be testing out the sharpness of these blades by cutting open a Glade Force Flex bag full of sand. I wouldn't be surprised if somehow it gets all over Ryu in some way.
I think it cuts.
Well, this just in. Knife sharp.
I'm pretty happy with the way my blade performed. It bent instead of break, so that's a good thing.
You know, all things considered, I'm pretty happy how my blade performed. I mean, not fucking Phil over there, that's for sure.
Gentlemen, the judges have come to a decision. Phil, you did not make the cut.
You know, even though I knew it was coming because of that horribly laughable and embarrassing demonstration, I'm still sad to see Phil go. Mainly because I got a lot of easy jokes out of him, but I also do kind of miss him. But now is no time to mourn, and since Phil's ass is out, we're finally moving on to the next challenge, the last challenge, the main event that the episode is named after, and that's taken 30 minutes to get to, the forging of the Viking battle axe. And for this challenge, they're actually going to go back to their home forge and have 5 days to complete this build, which I bet Phil's probably thankful that he didn't move on to this one. You know, I'm a little bit upset that I didn't make it out of the next round, but all things considered, it's probably for the best. I'm all out of vacation days, and I can't afford to keep doing this fucking show.
Viking warriors were mostly farmers, so when going off the fight, they would pick the tool they had close at hand, which was often a wood-cutting axe.
You know, I think this is one of the parts of the show that feels sort of reminiscent of Deadliest Warrior to me when they do these historic reenactments, which this is the History Channel, so they had to have something. You know, I don't know if they filmed these themselves just for this 5-second shot, or if they just bought some stock footage. Filming it themselves would be much funnier, though. I like that idea, so I will choose to believe that. Now, if their explanation and that fun little Viking clip wasn't enough for you, and you're still unsure what all this battle axe nonsense is about, don't worry. They dumb it down nice and easy for the fucking nerds in the audience to get.
The battle axe has a long and colorful association with fantasy film and literature, being the weapon of choice for the dwarves in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, as well as for the players of fantasy computer games such as World of Warcraft. After 5 days, you will present your battle axes to the judges, where they will put them through a series of rigorous and dynamic tests.
They're just gonna test this shit out on Phil and James. That's what they get for losing.
One of you will walk out of here with a check for $10,000 and the title of Forged in Fire Champion.
Arguably both of equal value. So now we're going to check in with Jonathan at his home forge, which he has quite the setup. It looks pretty similar and on par with the one that they've been working at thus far, so he has everything he needs. I cannot, in good faith, say the same thing about Ryu's setup.
The studio shop had everything, man. I got the bare bones, only the basics.
Yeah, not quite the same level as Jonathan's setup. It looks like he's working out of the back of a Fallout 3 camp. Something else we're going to see with Ryu's home setup is more of his cherry picking with modern versus traditional tools and methods.
My forge is basically a cast iron pot with a hole drilled in the bottom where I attached a black pipe, and on that black pipe I attached a hairdryer.
You cannot go on and on about forging in the ways of your ancestors when you've got a goddamn Conair hairdryer hooked up to your forge.
When you're working with high-powered power tools, you gotta remember safety first. You gotta wear some eye protection and respirator.
Now, as time goes on, it starts to become very clear that Ryu is not going to be able to make a weapon of this size with his current forge. So he's either going to have to make a newer, bigger forge, or, well, make a newer, bigger forge. That is his only option, is to make a new forge. So while he's working on that, let's see how Jonathan is doing.
Man! I just wasn't paying attention. I took my eye off it and I cooked it. It's done. I gotta start over. Unbelievable!
Okay, not so good. Back to Ryu. All right.
Biggest thing we gotta deal with is the package. Too close to the book.
I have to move the forge and reposition everything. Last night, I finished the blade, and now we're gonna start working on the handle. I don't have electric saws.
Yeah, just that electric angle grinder and the goddamn blow dryer. Jesus Christ, I'm getting really fucking tired of you, Ryu. You know, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, once it came time to attach my blade to the handle, I ran into some trouble. It wasn't fitting right, and especially troublesome because I don't have fancy shop tools to help me out in a situation like this. So I went to my 3D printer and I constructed a special fit.
A battle axe doesn't have to be smooth and shiny. It just has to work. It doesn't have to be pretty to split skulls.
Well, we were thinking like maybe more of the carcass of a pig or something like that. Alright guys, it's finally time. They've had 5 days to complete their axes, and now we're going to put them to the test.
I left the whole piece raw and rough. That says a lot about me and how I make my blades. I don't want to clean it up and mirror polish it. Especially it's a Viking axe. I don't think Vikings cared for a mirror polish back then. They're not a bunch of pretty boys.
My axe is kind of rough around the edges, just like me. I didn't really bother with a mirror polish or anything like that because I know the Vikings back in the day wouldn't have cared about something like that. Also, I don't know how.
Each of your blades will have to endure 3 trials. There will be a kill test, a chop test, and a strength test.
All right, gentlemen, first we're going to put your axe through the kill test. Phil, come on out. Now, going into this test, we once again see some of Jonathan's famous confidence on display.
I'm looking at the rack of meat, and I'm not sure if the axe is gonna hold up.
That's right. It crushed to 3 bones. It will kill.
Yes, it will.
Okay, let's take it down a notch. I don't like the word choice they're using, nor how they're saying it. It will kill. Yes, it will. Okay, Ryu, you're up next. So now they're going to put both axes through the wood panel test, and they both do well. They do what they're supposed to do. They're big, heavy, sharp axes.
Seem to do the job.
But it's not over yet. Jesus Christ, this is the longest episode of television I've ever fucking seen. For the very last demonstration, they're going to hook the axe up to what looks like a very dangerous mechanism that will allow the axe to deliver the maximum amount of force to this shield. And once again, they both do the same thing. And it turns out great. No fills here. It pretty much just comes down to Ryu's handle feeling better, and the fact that Jonathan's blade was a little bit crooked, so nothing too extreme, but there can only be one winner. There's only $10,000 to give. That's all they were able to scrape up after giving the Pawn Stars guys their paychecks for the month.
Jonathan, your weapon did not make the cut.
Yeah, I fucking figured.
Jonathan, please surrender your weapon.
Yeah, I'm totally proud of the work that I've done. I mean, I turned in a laminated Viking battle axe.
Okay, it was one thing when James had to surrender that thing he made, or Phil doing the same with his broken knife, but Jonathan made what looks like a nice, well-made axe for the most part that he put a lot of time and energy into. 5 days of time to be exact. Also, with his own tools and materials, just just to hand it over to these guys? Or it will probably go into the History Channel's storage until the Deadliest Warrior guys on Spike need to borrow it.
Feel very proud right now. I worked really hard for this. I guess it paid off.
You know, I gotta be honest, I did not see Ryu coming out on top on this. Maybe that's because he almost passed out on a bench 5 minutes into this week-long competition, as well as not being proficient with modern tools, and getting the fire department called on him because of his many code violations in that backyard. It really wasn't looking like it was going to be Ryu's game. But he came out on top. You know what? I'm happy for him. I'm happy for everyone else too. Especially James. I hope he's doing alright. It did not look like it. Well guys, that was Forged in Fire. A lot of you had requested it for some time now, so I'm glad I finally got to take a look at it. Let me know if you want to see more. I will try to do some in the future soon. With all that being said, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, consider leaving a like rating down below, comment, share with your friends. All that helps me out a ton. And if you're new, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you can stay up to date on all of my uploads. Thank you once again to Factor for sponsoring. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.